Boston College has tons of question marks around their quarterback position, more than any other year. And this spring, hopefully, will give us a lot of answers heading into the 2026 season.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for Boston College news, analysis, and details on your Eagles, you are in the right place. Locked On BC is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. On today's show, going to get into another freshman, Steve Klein, a linebacker I'm excited to talk to you about and why I think he could be in for a really good career at Boston College. Then we're going to look at the quarterback position. Who's a name who could surprise? Who is a question mark? What are the storylines? And who could be a name to watch for? We're going to get into all of that on our first camp preview episode of Locked On BC. Now, BC opens up spring camp on March 10th. This is going to be the 15 I think it's 15 practices they get in the spring that culminates with scrimmages. Unfortunately, this year does not look like there's going to be a spring game, and that means, unfortunately for you, it doesn't sound like there'll be open practices. Now, as someone who gets to go to some of these practices, I'm going to be able to talk to you, up close and personal about how things are looking. And one position I cannot wait to watch, and I talked about it more yesterday, but I want to talk more about it, is the quarterback position. Now, it's so funny. You go back to last year, go back to listen to some of my old episodes in the archives, right? I have episodes talking in detail about the progression of this quarterback room and how I felt like with recruiting, they were getting themselves lined up to have it's going to go from Dylan Lonergan to Corinne Berry to this, to that, to this, to that. And how in just 12 months, it's like Wile E. Coyote with the TNT. They just hit the plunger and blows everything up. Now, Jonathan DiBiase has a completely different quarterback room, and all the players are different than they had last year. 0 returning players. 0. I figured at the least you would have gotten Shaker Rising to come back. That didn't happen. But BC, to their credit, have gone out and brought in guys that they feel will work well in their program. In terms of freshmen, they brought in Anthony Colner and Femi Babalola. We talked about Femi on the show a couple days ago. You brought in 2 transfers, Mason McKenzie from Saginaw Valley and Grayson Wilson from Arkansas. So you added in some older players with some younger players, and the hope is that this room will jump off. Now, the big storyline, I think, there's a couple storylines to watch for heading into camp. And the biggest question is, how good is this room going to be, right? You listen to what Bill O'Brien has said about Mason McKenzie, and you would think this is going to be the best quarterback that they've had in a long time. Better than the last couple of years, right? And the way he talks about him is different in my mind than the way he talked about Dylan Lonergan, the way he talked about Grayson James or Tommy Castellanos. It feels different. Now, I don't know if this is coach speak. I don't know if he really feels like this is going to be but I think what we're going to be looking for is where this offense is going. I think you have these 4 new names, and the style of at least 3 out of the 4 players is it adds a piece of mobility that you haven't seen, out of the Bill O'Brien quarterbacks. You brought in Shaker Rising, you brought in Dylan Lonergan. Neither of those guys were considered mobile, really. Now you bring in Mason McKenzie, who ran for almost 1,000 yards last year. Grayson Wilson, also in high school, ran for like 800 yards. Femi Babalola is pretty mobile himself. Anthony Colner, I don't get the sense that he is as much, but that's another story. But I mean, literally, you're going to be going into the year probably with Grayson Wilson and McKenzie as you're starting to, your QB 1 and 2. and it's mobility there. Now, the storyline that's going to be going is how mobile and good are these guys that you're bringing in? Because, I mean, for every guy you're looking at, you don't have a good sense of what they're going to look like because you got two that are freshmen, so you're just seeing them in high school, and even then, it's like, how can you gauge any of that? Grayson Wilson, you basically have to go back to high school for him, and then um, for Mason McKenzie, his film, who the heck? If any of you out there know where to find anything other than that Ferris State game, please send it my way because I have not seen anything out there because it seems like D2 is football is off on a different planet. So just as someone who covers and watches this, all four of these guys are I don't know. Like I don't know like how they're going to look. So that's the storyline there is what are they going to look like at camp? Are we going to see huge learning curves? Are we going to see them struggling to pick up the offense? If that's the case, that's going to be worrisome. Or are they, if what Bill O'Brien says about Mason McKenzie is true, is he going to pick up this offense quickly? Is he going to be smart and charismatic and really go out there and be that leader out there? Because if that's the case, heck, this could be a fun season. So for me, there are two huge storylines here. How they're gonna use their mobility and how that changes the offense. Whoever the offensive coordinator, and the more and more it goes on, it seems like it's going to be an internal thing versus, these players that you just don't know. Like you don't know who any of these players are. And so that also gives me a thought too. Like if there's no spring game, and I thought there wouldn't be, this is one of the big years not to do it. Now, last year, O'Brien said that he didn't want to do it because that second transfer portal window, it basically just opens it as a viewing session for any team that wants to poach anyone. Now that transfer portal session is gone now. It's down to that, January portal, and that's it. So he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. It goes to the newest thing, which is he's not going to want anything on tape. And so the fact that he got rid of this seems smart because if people are like me who cannot fit, and Mitch, listen, if you guys have heard Mitch Wolf on the show, he has the connections to get tape on anything. He found Bryce LaFollette punter tape from Towson. I don't know where he finds this stuff, but he finds it. And even he can't find Mason McKenzie tape. So it's out there, but I know that Bill O'Brien is going to want this stuff on lock and key until they play Cincinnati in that season opener. So that's the reason why there's not going to, in my opinion, I would imagine that's the biggest reason why they're not having a spring game because you have was it 50 new players on your team between the freshmen and transfers? That's over half of your roster. All new. You don't need to let anyone know. Make it a big old surprise for them because that gives you a little bit of an edge against Cincinnati and Rutgers. So that's why, all these quarterbacks, other than me and other media members, and I will guarantee you they're going to keep us under a lock and key to say, you can't talk about this X and Y and Z, and I get it. You want to keep it quiet. But you're gonna need to not know that like they're gonna keep this stuff like Fort Knox because these quarterbacks and what they could bring, they don't want anyone to know how to defend against them. Now, in our second segment, I want to look at a couple questions I have. I want to look at who I project to be the starter and a name to watch that could surprise people during camp. I'll give you both of those in just a moment. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, and the whole experience. Now, I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. So visit fanduel.com to get yourself started because basketball is going. You get those futures going. You can use your profit boost on any NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. So play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Are you a diehard Locked On BC fan? There's no reason to be shameful. If maybe I'm one of your 5 top podcasts that you listen to every single week, and I know you're out there, and you may not want to admit it, but I know you love my show. If you want to take your fandom and your experience to that next level, you need to be part of our Everydayer Club. I want to tell you about our all access tier. I'm not going to give you all the nuts and bolts, but I want to tell you about First Cup with AJ. If you like hearing me, this is like Relaxed Fit AJ, where I talk about things that are going on, things that have caught my attention. You get a special 10-minute episode frequently through the week. I'm not going to say every day, but I do 3 to 4 shows a week where I talk about just things going on. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about Bruce Pearl, a name that fans have been talking about as a potential fit for BC. I'll explain my thoughts on all of that. I've been talking about recruiting and my Earl Grant and quarterbacks, all of it in a nice 10-minute format. If you're looking for that extra level, I think you'll enjoy it. You have to join our all access tier to get that. I hope you do. The details are in the show notes. You get a whole bunch more to go with it just than my show, including texting with me. You get access to our Discord channel, which is like a big group chat. You get discounts on our merch, all sorts of good stuff. I hope you guys join, and I'll see you over on the all access tier of the Everydayers Club. I'm going to leave that link down there during this segment because I think many of you may decide during the show that you want to sign up. So be sure to sign up while we're chatting here about this quarterback position. Camp is here. 4 guys. Who is going to be the starter? That's my big question to go into segment 2. And I think the way he said it in his first interview that has now been redacted and deleted is that it's Mason McKenzie's job to lose. And going into during the winter, all eyes were on Deuce Knight. I talked about him a bunch, his connection to Kenyatta Watson. There was a lot of buzz that he was interested in BC, but he ended up going to Ole Miss, where he's from, and now he gets to sit behind Trinidad Chambliss, who gets another year. So that storyline is dead, right? He's not coming here. You have the 4 guys that you have that are going to be playing next year, and that's who we need to focus on. You have Mason McKenzie, Grayson Wilson, Femi Babalola, and Anthony Colner. Who is going to be the starter? Barring a catastrophe over the next couple months, the answer seems pretty clear to me. Everything that Bill O'Brien has said about Mason McKenzie, the way that he brought him in, he had to battle other schools, Northwestern, Michigan State. I heard a whole bunch of Big Ten schools were interested in him and we're going to make him a starter. And BC won this. Yes, he came from Saginaw Valley, but there is a lot of buzz around him. And, we as people who don't watch D2 football, don't grind D2 football tape, may not be aware of why that deal is there. Now, he was conference player of the year, just like Chambliss. I saw something, I think it was Grant Hughes, who's part of my 247 network, saying there's people out there that says he's a better runner than Chambliss, which is crazy. He's going to be the starter. Unless he really, really struggles to pick up FBS football level defenses, he's going to start. Like, you brought him in here to be that guy. And believe me, I think Grayson Wilson's going to challenge. I think you'll see moments out of a guy like Femi Babalola. But going into this season, going into 2026, to me, Mason McKenzie is that starter. He's going to give you probably going to give you the best chance to win. As I said on my show the other day, go back in my archives if you haven't heard it yet, I was saying his ability to transform this offense, his opportunity to transform this offense into something that's more college style and more explosive is higher than anyone on this roster right this moment. You have a guy that ran for almost 1,000 yards as a quarterback. Okay. And you have a coach that seemingly seems to have learned from the previous years. You know, I I've said this before, like if they go the same route that they did with Tommy Castellanos, this is going to be a big, big mistake. But I don't think they will. Like as I said, Tommy Castellanos was a guy that was known for his legs. They tried to make him into a pocket passer who could still run here and there, and it just didn't work. They are, everything I've heard, and I've talked to people and I've heard the buzz is that they're going to really rely on Mason McKenzie's athleticism. That is what makes him a dangerous quarterback. It's not standing back there and throwing the ball. And according to other things I've heard, he's got a great arm too. It just he has to hone in the accuracy piece. So all of that, McKenzie's going to be your starter. He will be the starter. And it'll be interesting to see, how entrenched he is at that point. Like, last 2 years, it's been back and forth, right? In 2024, it was Grayson James and Tommy Castellanos kind of battling, and you'd read reports, or I was there, and I'd say, "Wow, that was a practice. James looked a whole lot better," or a bunch of practices. James looked a whole lot better, and then Castellanos would make a play or two, and then it would be like, "Whoa, that happened." And then last year, it was Larnagin and James, and that went into the summer, and they were, in my opinion, at a dead heat going into the summer. Will that happen this year? And I can't say yes or no because you have all these different factors going in, especially between Wilson and James. Well, not James, Wilson and McKenzie. Who is going to really solidify themselves? I imagine Mason McKenzie will, but this goes to who my biggest surprise could be, and that's going to be Grayson Wilson. Grayson Wilson, you look at the numbers he put up in high school, and you can see why SEC schools really liked him. He put up big time numbers in Arkansas at the high school level. And his athleticism does match. I don't know if it's going to be the same as Wilson, but he's got athleticism and the pedigree that should keep you wanting to watch more. And that's what I'm going to be noticing this summer, in the spring too. Like I fully expect that Femi Babalola and Anthony Colner are going to have some growing pains. To me, it's going to be 2 tiers of quarterbacks. You're going to have the Grayson Wilsons and Mason McKenzies and Femi and Anthony Colners down here. And that's not a knock on them. They're just as I said earlier on my Femi Babalola show, this will be, a huge step up from him. He was a situational quarterback who kind of rotated with another quarterback at high school. Colner played in Indiana, I think it was, right? Jumping up to the ACC is going to be a bit of a learning curve for the two of them. So to me, Grayson Wilson will be a name to watch. He's also in his second year. I think there's something to be said, and I said this with Larnagin last year, that practicing against a SEC level, competition, whether it's first tier, second tier, or third tier, is a different world than practicing against Elon, as a backup, or against, Harvard or whatever. It's iron sharpening iron. So that's the piece with him where I'm saying, yeah, he hasn't played yet. And yeah, you haven't seen anything out of Grayson Wilson, but the fact that he practiced against Arkansas all the time shows me that maybe, he's learned some things. The speed of the game will come to him a lot easier. And playing against BC, especially playing against the back, he'll probably play against the twos a lot, I would imagine. That's going to show, he's going to speed up, I think, a lot faster than some of those other guys. And, how high that goes will be interesting to watch, because there's always the chance that this is, again, a kid that came from Arkansas with plus athleticism, that he comes in and then we see the exact same thing that we've seen in years past, where you assume that Mason McKenzie's a starter, but hey, here comes Grayson Wilson, and you're watching at practice going, who is this guy? Because he's making good throws, he's athletic, he's extending plays. That kind of thing could happen as well. I'm curious to see, but I'm starting to swallow the Mason McKenzie pills a lot more than I expected to. I guess that's hope springing eternal, I guess. I don't know. But Mason McKenzie and Grayson Wilson are the two I'm watching for. Now, in our final segment, let's get into a freshman. Steve Klein, a linebacker who's coming this summer. Why is he exciting and why do I think he could be the next big BC linebacker? I'll explain why in just a moment. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to hand off and go on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. You can load up your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just filed by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. South Carolina rolled past Ole Miss 85-48 to clinch a share of the SEC regular season title and lock down the number 1 seed in the conference tournament. The Gamecocks extended their win streak over Ole Miss to 21 straight. UCLA dominated Wisconsin 80-60 to secure its first outright Big Ten regular season championship in program history. The Bruins improved to 27-1 overall and remain unbeaten in conference play. And number 12 TCU stormed back from a 13-point fourth quarter deficit to beat Iowa State 80-73. The Horned Frogs now sit alone atop the Big 12 standings and are 1 win away from clinching another regular season conference crown. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts that same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here. Thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College part of your first listen every single day. And if you have looking for a second listen, check out Locked On ACC. Hosted by Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono. I think you'll enjoy their show. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you've missed any of my other shows, because there isn't a lot going on because of this blizzard, all these shows are evergreen this week. So listen to all of them. If you like this show, check out some of the older episodes. I think you'll enjoy those as well. Now, we're doing a class of 2026 dive in here for getting ready for camp because, as I said, with transfers, with coaching changes, and all the news that was buzzing over the last 2 months, I neglected to get into the class of 2026 and to give you more details on these recruits that are now signees because you need to know their names because they could be playing this year. One name that I loved watching this past year, one name that didn't get a huge amount of buzz was linebacker Steve Klein, a 6'2", 230-pound linebacker from Westwood, New Jersey. Now, he was a top 10 recruit in his state. Top 15, according to ESPN. He recorded as a senior 5 interceptions, 2 pass breakups, and 2 forced fumbles on defense, en route to becoming a first-team all-state honors. He also played running back, where he had an enormous year as well, rushing for 1,100 yards with 13 touchdowns on the ground. Now, he's going to play linebacker at BC. He was I think he's the lone linebacker in this class, again, enrolling over the summer. Big, physical, good size. Like, this is not going to be an Owen McGowan, 5'11" linebacker. He's 6'2". So when I was trying to make a comp for him, I was like, okay, he's smaller. I looked at Mike McLaughlin. He's got 2 inches on Mike McLaughlin. The closest guy I could come to is Isaiah McDuffie, who is 6'1", 6'2". That kind of fit that kind of role. I love watching his tape. If you've not got a chance to go out and look up Steve Klein's tape, he's big, he's physical, he's smart, he's everywhere. I mean, Westwood, I'm not into New Jersey football, but you watch game film from it and it's like, okay, there's Steve Klein going crazy on offense, rushing for 4 touchdowns. And there's Steve Klein again, recovering a fumble. And there's Steve Klein, sacking the quarterback. And there's he's everywhere. So his ability to just like rack up score sheets and just like dominate games was something that caught my eye. Now he only had a couple offers. He had Syracuse and BC, and he's committed to BC before official visit season even started. So BC jumped on him quick. Dan O'Brien and I think it was Savon Huggins that was the lead recruiter for him during that recruiting phase. Like they wanted this guy, they got him, and I think he, you're looking at linebacker for this year. This is not, again, linebacker is not a position you want to be playing freshmen at because there's just so much required of them on defense, and you brought in, you know, um, Anthony Polano, excuse me, Brody Cahoon, and Justin Medlock, three transfers in to go along with a couple other guys that are expected to play, like Griffin Collins and Kamori Dixon and Palai Foa. Like they've got a lot of guys that are scheduled to play. So I don't expect Steve Klein to play right away, but this is one guy that I say, it could happen quick. Like I don't think, I don't mean quick like this year, but like he'll probably redshirt this year, play next year, and you'll start to hear more and more from him. Again, really like his athleticism. And just he's a smart player. Like that's what you're gonna see with Steve Klein, like a smart linebacker who just fits the mold of what you expect. Like, 6'2" linebacker from New Jersey. Does that say BC linebacker or what? Right. So Steve Klein is a name that you'll be watching for. And we'll have more when he shows up to camp this summer. So that's our show for today. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a 10-minute bonus episode after the Wake Forest game. I'll give you my thoughts on that, maybe a few other things that have been popping around in my mind, including women's lacrosse, who finally ended their. I could not believe this. They had a 3-game losing streak, and that was their first 3-game losing streak since 1999. Crazy. We'll have talks about that. We'll talk more about camp talk. Halfbacks. I talked about Nolan Ray versus Evan Dickens on yesterday's show, but we need to talk more about Bo McCormick and that whole crew. I'm going to give you my thoughts on that running back room. We'll get into that, and we will get into safety, Dejon Green. We'll get into all that on tomorrow's show, and anything else that breaks, make sure you check it out here at Locked On BC. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Again, you want that first cup with AJ, get over on that all access tier. I hope to see you guys there. And check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and all the other channels. I will be there talking BC. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day.